Welcome everybody to Fast Peak Last Week. This is the new show from 100 Talk, and here's what we're going to do. We're going to dial up the intensity. We're going to talk fast because you have to fast peak. We're going to cover a lot of topics, and we're going to do it very quickly. So if you're coming here from our League of Legends show, 100 Talk, which feels overly descriptive at this point, we might have to think about that. This is not long form, right? We thought about names we could go with. We thought about slow peak the next 2 months, just didn't have the same ring to it. We thought about fast last peak week, which I don't know, seemed good at the time. Maybe not. We won't go with that. That's a logo joke. If you're looking at our logo and confused, Cole's done some good work with the colors on that. But no, this is a show where we're going to really quickly get through what has been going on in 100T Valorant. It's going to be just like our other show. This is focused on 100 Thieves. And just like our other show, we are not experts, Cole. I've not hit Radiant yet. I don't know about you. I need a little bit more grinding, I think, to get there myself. But you know what? We do know.
I haven't hit bronze yet.
I haven't done my placements yet, Cole. But I've watched some Valorant, and I like what I see so far. It's going to be a fun show. It's going to be a fun esport. I'm glad we're in it. I think it's going to bring a lot of just excitement to this team, to my viewing lineup. And we, like the team, want to be in early. So here we are. We have some really cool plans. We've got some great ideas. Here's something that we didn't have when we started 100 Talk. People actually interested in watching some of the things we do. I think when we first started 100 Talk, there was me and you and one view bot. So we're at least off to a better start there. And so we're gonna see how this thing goes. Not only the show, but the esport. And with that, Cole, let's fast peak last week.
Let's fast peak last week.
Here's a quick thing to do before we put the timer on the screen. Hopefully it's, oh gosh, it's there. It hasn't started yet, but we're not there. This timer started, Cole. It's time to go. You do that. And let's talk about our first topic, which is Hiko's internet. Where else could we start? Hiko's internet and the implications of said internet and all the problems that come along with it. I just like that I'm sort of in this, but not really.
Yeah.
So I'm going to let you produce, and I'm going to monologue for a little bit. And here's what I'm going to say. I feel like this is the classic distraction that no one wanted and that none of us can stop talking about. And the thing that is discouraging to me is I feel like it really kind of obfuscates all the other stuff going on with this. It's an exciting thing. We have this star player, and all anybody can seem to talk about, including Hiko, is the fact that his internet is bad, right? Which is not the most compelling storyline. And I think it kind of distracts from the bigger picture here, which is there's a lot going on. There's a lot to try to make sense of. And I don't really think we can do that yet because there are just too many variables at play. It's even hard to get a sense for like, well, how even basic questions, how good is this team, right? Because this one topic finds its way into every conversation. And I think partially what it's doing is it's creating a meme, right? That we can't escape. But also I think it's raising a lot of doubts that might not be there otherwise. It looks like we're on the same planet now. So do you have a perspective on this one?
Yeah, no, I think I've tweeted out a couple times that he must be in the Bermuda Triangle or something with his internet situation. But here's the thing. All right, I'm gonna just put this out there, and I hate to make like the first thing I really say on this show about this, but honestly, I know what it's like when sometimes you are in a work situation that's a little bit difficult for you, that you're not really having the most fun with, and an obstacle comes up that prevents you from doing your job quite as well as you possibly could, and then that becomes kind of a crutch or an out for you.
Yep.
Right? And you don't work as hard. I'm wondering if there's a little bit of that going on in this situation. And I hate to be saying that on my very first thing to question who is, the guy that's the best player on this team, the team leader. But I know what that's like, man. And it just feels like because we started off on a rocky foot with him, because he made those comments, maybe the roster wasn't what he had in mind when he originally signed up, whether or not 100T was already talking to the high ground people before this or not.
Yep.
I just wonder if a little bit of that's going on.
Yeah, and here's the bad to worst scenario, right? It's super frustrating if your job is to play competitive video games and your internet doesn't work. That is a horrible situation to be in. That feels bad, and there's really no way to look at. So even if there's 0% of him, Cole, that is feeling less committed, or like, I wish that I could be practicing and scrimming as much as possible right now, but I can't. The doubt's going to be there. The timer's up, Cole. It's been replaced with what I can only assume is a screenshot of our next prompt, which is you actually gave us a good segue here. What is the org's objective with this roster? And I think this is another thing that's been on people's mind a lot. It feels a bit like a halfway roster, right? And let me expand on that. We went out and we made this huge splashy signing. We got Hiko, right? And his stream is super hot and people love watching this dude. He's got a huge following, a huge fan base, and then we followed up, and everybody's kind of expecting, right? In the days and weeks before we actually announce who is on our Valorant team, everybody's got this. It's like there's rumor mills going. People are hypothesizing. Well, who might it be? Hiko's the architect. He's going to handpick the players he wants. He's going to find all the up and coming talent. It's going to be an absolutely dominant roster. And then we see that there's an announcement, and I'd say it's not that. And I mean no disrespect to the other guys on the squad, but it's kind of, I got kind of like CSGO vibes. Like we just bought a team, and I think that's where Hiko came out and was like, that's not exactly what I would do, but that's what we're doing. So I wanted to ask you, what is the objective? And I want to talk about that because I want to try to understand, if we can, like, there are different ways to go about this, right? You're entering a new esport. It's young. What do you see as, or what do you suspect the org's objective is with the roster they put together?
Well, I think first of all, there was a race to capture eyeballs and attention. When Valorant first dropped, everybody was really like, I mean, they were even debating about who gets to stream this thing first, like who gets like the Twitch hours watched when this happened. And then who gets to host the first events, all that stuff. So obviously the speed was very important to everyone. And I think that roster building is something that traditionally takes a longer time than, just a couple of weeks or whatever. So, right. It seems
Although
to me,
Valorant time, a couple of weeks is like 2 years.
Yeah, right.
So
it seems to me though that it was likely the acquisition of high ground was in progress when they grabbed Hiko. So I think that their objective was more short term, like let's get a program in there. Let's see how this group of players that have some existing synergy plays together, while taking advantage of who is likely one of the best players available in Hiko.
Right. Yeah. If you have the opportunity to grab Hiko, I think you do it, because regardless of what other pieces are available to you, that that's a solid piece. And like you said, that he's going to win in the eyeball game. I mean, I'm constantly shocked at the size of his stream and his following. So let's go from there to then talk about, Cole, the next question, which is, do you feel like this team is finalized? I'm guessing I know what your thoughts are. and I think that the point we can start with this by saying is just, chances are this is not going to be like what our Valorant team looks like a year from now, 6 months from now, maybe. Once the esport side of this really starts to firm up, I'm guessing, well, one, we're getting a ton of data on what kind of players we have in this team, what their strengths are. Like, let's not forget, the people who've been playing Valorant for the longest have been in it for less than a year, right? So you talk about Poom making a quick transition at the LCS in League of Legends, playing for 2 years. Yeah, a shooter is a shooter, and CSGO is probably closer to Valorant than a lot of other things. But all like the true mastery that you get from hours and hours and hours in a game like this won't be there for anybody probably until closer to the launch, the true launch of the esports side. So from a finality standpoint, I think in some ways it's hard to even ask that question because, maybe the amateur scene is super rich and we start to see some talent coming up that we had no idea about otherwise. But you can't wait for that because then you have outright lost the eyeball game. Nobody's watching you because you're not playing. So it's tough. But what do you think about when you consider whether or not this is final? What do you expect to see?
Well, I mean, it's obvious from what I said before. I mean, I think a lot of this roster was kind of a Band-Aid situation where this is what we're going to do for now to have a team while this scene develops. And we don't know what the competitive landscape is going to end up looking like. We don't know how often the events are going to be, how much money is going to be in the events. We don't know what salary to pay these players. Everything is basically a question mark. But at the same time, you know, there's this, it's like a gold rush, right? You want to be first to play, you know? And so I don't think this team is finalized. I think further complicating that is the performance from the first few events that we've done has not been even what we would expect, like just based on talent alone. So with the team underperforming, like how can, you know, the talent remain the same for a long term? It just seems not possible to me.
Right. I'm realizing that the timer I'm looking at is on stream. I'm probably behind. So I think we're done with that question. I'm going to go to the next one, Cole. And this is the final question of our opening segment here as we complete the fast peek at last week. And it's this. Let's set expectations, Cole. Should we expect for this team to be better in the near future? Or is this a team that continues to sit outside the top 8? If you are somebody like Simo, a guy who knows a ton about this, you might even say outside the top 10. And we'll give him a chance to talk about that. But if you caught him on ESPN before our show, you'll know that that's the conversation, right? It's not how high is this team, right? Is this team even in the conversation at top 10 right now? And that brings to my mind another point that I wanted to ask you about, Cole, is here's what we're establishing. Eyeballs, gold rush. You got to get in early. You got to play the game to be in the game. Okay. These are all truisms that are helpful in this moment. One thing I want to talk about and I want your perspective on is what's the risk in that, right? If you show up as a team who looks like they don't belong, is it better to have not even entered the game, to wait and see what's out there? So, I mean, it's not an obvious answer there. I think one of the problems that we might run into here is that other teams look at us and they say, I'm not taking these guys seriously. Unfortunately, we have seen teams like that underneath the 100 Thieves banner. Let's not forget, Cole, our COD team, the most successful team we've ever had, started that way, right? And they made some really smart moves to get us to a place where we're going back-to-back chips, but it was not a gimme. And so I wanted to ask you, what's your thought on, do we improve? And if we don't, what's the risk?
So you're asking me, is it better to have played and lost than to have never played at all, right?
Do you have an answer to that, by the way?
The danger to it is that we suck and that the fans just view us as that team. Like the impression that you make with the fans is going to be a big deal, right? So teams have to be cautious in the first go around, like how you perform, because it takes a while to overcome one early mistake. I mean, look at how 100 Thieves LCS has had to battle the whole Meteos situation for, I mean, even this year. That thing happened in 2018 and we were still fighting that PR battle this year. Early mistakes can mean a huge amount for these early teams. So I do think that with the Hiko internet situation, with players getting more scrim time, we're going to be better in the near future. I have no doubts that we're going to look better and maybe play closer to our actual talent level. That said, I am glad, though, that we went ahead and got established in the scene. I think the risk at this point is worth it.
And with that, Cole, I want to take us to the next segment, which we're calling neural theft. And the reason is because we have stolen the genius of a person who is actually embedded in the scene, who thinks about these things on a different level. And when it comes to an in-depth analysis of a team's prospects, their potential, how high they might go, we are not the best people to talk about that because we're not exactly sure the intricacies of what we're seeing all the time.
Yeah.
But you know who is?
One Simo. Now, before we bring him on, let me say, based on what happened earlier production-wise, I fully anticipate that the next look of this show is going to be totally out of whack, which doesn't make any sense because we spent all the time setting it up like right before we push the go live button. So avert your eyes and just listen to the dulcet tones of Simo's voice here. Look, it worked. It worked. This scene works.
Amazing.
Why does this scene work and no other scene works? Goodness gracious.
Simo, Cole.
Simo,
we had to roll out.
we got the Simo buff.
Hey,
We just should. Why do we even wait to bring you on the show? Why do we wait for the neural theft segment to bring him on when he could have just fixed the whole thing from the go?
Yeah.
Yes.
Well,
Yes.
Simo, thanks so much for joining us. I know you have one of the coolest stories, I think, of recent memory in esports overall. I'm not even gonna say just Valorant, because the grind you put in, the way you put yourself out there, and the position you find yourself in now is so cool. And if anybody doesn't know this story, spend some time, follow Simo on Twitter. We'll have his social splash around. It's on the screen. But you are that person now who can kind of give us a better understanding and insight into this squad, as well as the competitive landscape. So if you want to say just a couple things, introduce yourself to the crew. My hope is that we'll continue to have you on the show. I think it probably is just a question of scheduling, because you're a super busy dude with a lot of Valorant stuff going on.
Yeah.
But what you've prepared for us basically is an in-depth look at our team specifically, especially as you kind of consider us in the context of what is forming up to be the competitive Valorant landscape.
So thanks for having me. I'm, of course, Simo. Hopefully you guys aren't too upset that I didn't put 100 Thieves in my ESPN power rankings. But at the end of the day, they are, of course, just power rankings, right? So they can change, they can shift. They're not, there's a lot of recency bias that goes into that. And for those of you that may have probably watched the PAX Invitational, we didn't do so hot if we're 100 Thieves fans, right? We did not do as well as we had hoped we would do. But a little bit about me. I'm sure I'll probably make a YouTube video at some point about my story, but I am an esports professor by day, and by night I cast Valorant. But some of you may know me from casting some of the 100 Thieves Next team in some of the lower tier, I guess, League of Legends tournaments, like the Upsurges, the Challenger Uprisings. But that's not what we're here to talk about. We're here to dissect what is going on with 100 Thieves. And so, to be quite honest with you, this segment's very difficult to prepare because there are a lot of things wrong. However, I've prepared some questions for myself and kind of some things to explore moving forward for the roster. And so, for me, the questions that I personally have to ask myself when I think about a team like 100 Thieves. So first of all, who's the IGL? Well, I think I've heard that it's Venerated. I think Venerated is the IGL. And so when you think about an IGL, what types of agents do they play? Honestly, some of them play Sova, some of them play Phoenix, some of them play Brimstone. It really is a whirlwind of agents that could be played. However, if you think about it on the bigger picture, you probably want an agent that does not demand a lot of attention mechanically, because you're calling the shots, you're telling the team what to do. And as a result, you're not going to be in the hands of Jett. You're not going to be in the hands of Cypher. While I don't think Cypher is very mechanically difficult, there's a lot that you have to set up all your tripwires. You got to set out. It's a whole hubbub that you don't really want to worry about. And so the first question I have is, who's the IGL? What are they playing? If it's Venerated, what is he playing? And can we get him on an agent that can call the shots a little bit better? The second thing I like to ask is, who's the op player? Because that is a big power player when it comes to Valorant. It's the most broken weapon in the game. That, besides the judge, and that in Sinatra's case, he might think it's the Odin, but a lot of people would argue that it is the operator. And so my problem is that Venerated seems to have the op in his hand, but he's calling the shots.
Yeah.
At the same time, you're thinking about calling the shots and also trying to be mechanically gifted at the same time. It just doesn't always work out. But also, Valier ops, Pride ops. I'm sure that some of the other players have opted in certain scrims as well. And there's a lot of hands in the cookie jar. And I just want to bring something up here really quick. If you could just bring up the top fraggers in the tournament based on kills per round graphic, we'll see if that slides up nice and easy with
Looks like you're good.
Okay.
Top fraggers. Yep, we got you.
This is a graph, or a chart rather, pulled off of VLR.gg. You are looking at the top performers from the PAX Invitational. Tens, sometimes ops. He plays Jett. Drone, doesn't necessarily op, but he'll play Phoenix. Ohai for Complexity. Big shout out to Complexity, really stepping up their game. Probably ops. Wardell, one of the best ops in the game.
Mm-hmm.
Superman, doesn't op, but frags out, whatever. Shazam ops. Mame ops. You're seeing a lot of players at the top of the leaderboards with the hands of the op. And then you see, I've highlighted at the very bottom, the next person that comes into the picture is Pride.
Yeah.
And so you ask yourself, okay, well, if Venerated is opping, but Pride is getting the frags, why not put that weapon into his hands and have him play some of the agents that better fit operators? Tens, Wardell, Shazam, Mame, they all play Jett. When are we going to see the Jett come out from 100 Thieves? And this is where that segues to the next graphic, 100 Thieves and their agent selection across all the data that we currently have. There might be some data missing. Apologies for that. I mean, not all these stats websites are fully up to date. The Spike GG obviously probably has some stuff missing, VLR, all of that stuff. So I think this is, yeah, there we go. So Pride, a lot of Brimstone, a lot of Cypher. Hiko, the only one trying to bring a lot of innovation to the team. He's got the Omen, he's got the Rays. There's the Sage as well. And I think it's Venerated that plays the Sova. And that's a great agent for calling the shots, but maybe not necessarily the greatest agent for opping. And I also have to bring into question the double smoke. You've got two smokers, you've got the Brimstone, you've got the Omen. Now, if we were to bring, now, that is for all of the maps, right? And the bottom one where you see the number 7, that is their Ascent lineup. They play Brimstone, Cypher, Omen, Sage, and Sova. So let's have a look at what everyone else plays on Ascent, because I want to highlight just one specific map, because that is the map, Ascent specifically, that has the most innovation. People are playing Sageless, people are playing Reyna and Viper, people are playing agents that don't normally get a lot of pick. Now, so it might be a little bit difficult to see because it's a little scrunched up, a little small, but that's okay. TSM, they'll throw in the Phoenix, they'll throw in the Sage, they'll throw in the Reyna, they'll experiment, they'll throw in the Omen. They've got a lot of different things cooking. T1, they don't really experiment, but here and there they'll play Phoenix or they'll play Sage, or maybe they'll bring in the Jett. Oh, here we go, it's flying. But the point being is that there's agent variety. Cloud9, maybe a little less agent variety, but we're going from Jetts to breaches. And we're trying to solidify some rosters here, some agent selection here. Sentinels, they play the same thing every time. Immortals, a lot of variety. Genji, a lot of variety. The point that I'm trying to make is that there are probably some shining lights when it comes to 100 Thieves. The match against TSM was a close one. It went the distance, it went all 3 maps, and there was a possibility that 100 Thieves could have taken the win against TSM. Possibly. There's a possibility. TSM, in my power rankings, is a top 3 team. And so to get it that close with a top 3 team, there's obviously signs of life.
Yeah.
We don't need the defibrillator quite yet. The problem is that I'm not seeing innovation out of 100 Thieves. And this is just one of the very many problems that I think plague 100 Thieves. Get somebody on the Jett. Get somebody on a Phoenix. Spice things up. Change up the agent selection. And bring new ideas to the forefront for 100 Thieves. Gen G, they've got their opera Hyun. He has been playing Sova quite consistently throughout the beta. Then, as he saw Wardell and he saw Tens embarrass everybody, tournament after tournament, he's like, I'm going to pick up Jett. Because my team wants me to try new things, because my team wants me to get involved, and because I got to follow along. I'm not saying 100 Thieves to follow along and exactly nitpick every single agent selection, but let's bring something new. Let's and to be quite honest, we talk about Hiko being like the cornerstone of this roster, and I really do believe that. In another world, I would want Hiko to IGL. Think about all the wealth of experience this guy has from CS and how he can call the shots. If you watch his stream for one match, you will immediately find out how smart this guy is at Valorant. Now, personally, I haven't seen a lot of the high ground roster. I haven't watched a lot of their streams. I don't know what their calls look like, and so maybe I might be making the wrong call. I'd be willing to admit that. But bring me something new to the table, at least once, so I can see that you're pushing new ideas to the forefront. And with a new agent just leaked today,
that's right.
You better be bringing some new stuff. You better be bringing some new stuff.
Yeah, that all makes a ton of sense, man. And I'd add to that. We've seen Dre say that he's off the Sage, right? He's no longer going to be playing Sage. I feel like to tie up everything that you've brought up, it does feel like some of the stuff we talked about earlier, the identity isn't there yet. And, pin it on whatever reason of the many available for that. New game, new roster, not used to playing together. These guys played with each other, but not Hiko. Hiko's internet. Like there's any myriad reason you could point to. And I do think we saw Valiate on Jett one map, I believe, against he was off the Cypher for one game against Built by Gamers.
I think he was, right, yeah.
For one match.
Yeah.
So it's stuff like that where you'd say, I mean, and he's still bottom fragged. So clearly
geez.
that was not the move.
Go easy, man.
I'm just saying it wasn't like, oh, now we're clicking, right? So what that tells me is we still need to find the identity. And the thing that is always going to be in my mind is, if not for that one ace against TSM, that was in, I think it was drone, maybe we were up 11 or something at that point, there's a very good chance we take that first map. So that hurts because, like you said, that's your third power rank team and we were close. And these games are all about momentum. And once you lose that play, it gets in your head.
Yeah.
So it's tough, but I do feel like there's upside here. And I'm interested in it. And especially what you're talking about. Are we going to start to see the identity come through? We've got another tournament this weekend. That's one week. And I think Internet Watch, I believe Hiko said his business line is in like today. So hopefully that means that
one
we get,
before though.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I'm not going to name drop any ISPs, but hopefully that means we get an extra week to actually polish this up and be ready. I guess we'll see. Yeah, but this is not called Fast Peak next week. It's last week. And so appreciate your analysis of where we are. Cole, do we have time for one Incendiary from
Yes, we do. Do you want to explain what Incendiary is first before we roll into it? I
do want to, yeah. So we love to get chat involved, the community involved, 100 Thieves, Valorant fans involved in these conversations in whatever way we can. In the Discord Monday morning, we open up a channel, which is Incendiary. It's a place to drop your hottest take. Everybody votes on the take they think is hot. And one of those takes makes it onto the show. Maybe more of the takes if we have time. But today we've got maybe time for one. So here's what I want to have tonight's Incendiary be. Cole, and is there anything that from a production standpoint?
You ready to go to Incendiary?
Let's do it.
Wait for it.
Molly.
Oh, go, baby.
All right. So the Molly's out. And here's what we're going to go with. We're going to go with here. Yeah, here's what we're going to go with. I'm trying to wrap this up or adapt on the fly. I want to address this one. This is coming from our community member, HoodieGod, and it's his hot take. He even prefaced it by saying hot take. Here it is. Hiko isn't performing to the level he should be because he is upset with 100T for not letting him pick the team exactly how he wanted. So he's trying to prove a point.
Wow.
And this is a hot take. And it's one that this is not the first time I've seen this idea put out there. And so let me offer the first reaction to this take. Personally, I think, look, our organization is no stranger to disagreements with star players. That's something we've got some experience with, unfortunately.
We have a rich legacy of that, in fact.
A rich 2 years. The COD guys are like the one thing that never...
and even that wasn't great at the start. So
yeah, at the start it wasn't. But I have to believe, and I have to imagine, that he understands the way this works, and he can voice his disappointment and dissatisfaction with pieces of it. But it doesn't do you any good as a leader if you don't kind of play ball, right? So if you're trying to prove a point, I think the only person you're likely to prove a point about is yourself. You just got to be careful about that. And we kind of saw that, again, to go back to League. Meteos, the second time around, tried to prove a point, and I think the community turned on him pretty quick. So if you get into that point-proving game, you got to watch it. You're playing with a Molly, right? And you can get burned. So that's my spot on that. Anybody else have perspective?
Yeah, let me share a quick story because this actually was back when I was in high school. Jordan was on the swim team with me. There's my senior year. I worked basically all my swimming career. I was like all right, but not great. But I did have a shot at making state in one event, and I had to hit a certain time to do so. Right. So in my last ever race, I raced this race and I missed the cutoff for state by less than a quarter of a second. Right. And I was devastated because I felt like this was everything I worked for. Like this would have been the one achievement that I could point to be like, okay, finally I accomplished something. And I was crushed. And I remember getting out of the pool and I went over to where I sat down and I just like put a towel over my head and hung my head down and basically was just sulking, right? I was team captain though, right? Coach came up to me and he said, hey, are you okay? I said, I'm just, trying to process what happened. He was like, you had a bad race? I was like, yeah, it's kind of a bad race. He was like, okay. The other guys are still swimming though. And that to me was the lesson, right? It was like, get the towel off your head and be a leader and rally the troops and make the most out of the situation. And that's what needs to happen here. I alluded to earlier, I think that there's a tendency, I don't think it's like 100% malicious intent or whatever, but sometimes when things aren't going your way, it can be easier to give up if there's an obstacle. And as the team leader, you got to pick yourself up and you got to inspire the other guys. And when I see the team like hanging with these other teams, and then like when you get to the end of the maps, the performance falls off, like that's where I'm looking for the leader to make up the difference. And so that's what I want to have happen.
Yes. Simo?
Yes.
You got something? You think like you got something on your mind?
Yes. That story actually just reminds me of an audiobook that I listened to a while back called Can't Hurt Me. It's about this guy who just goes kind of wild on some things. He tries to join the special ops. Like he goes through it 3 different times. And on the 3rd time, he walks 10 miles with 2 broken legs. It's like one of those. It's like,
Jeez.
yeah, you're. Yeah.
What?
I'm not saying Hiko needs to walk 10 miles with 2 broken legs. I'm not.
With a broken laptop. Hobble over to the internet cafe, my friend.
Yeah. But, it's very interesting. Valiate went on the Valoranting podcast, which is, in my opinion, one of the more premier Valorant podcasts out there. And he was talking a little bit about the team. It sounded like everything is all good in the camp, right? But we have to imagine that there are certain things that probably will be left unsaid. Players are going to hide things, like it's always going to happen. And my biggest question, and to be fair, this is not only to 100 Thieves. This is to Cloud9. This is to Sentinels. Where's the damn coach? Sorry, excuse my language, but where's the coach? Yeah. Where is he? When are you going to hire him? You need someone to come in, step in, talk about strategy, talk about execution, and whip the team into shape. And if the team's not whipping into shape, then you replace the team. And obviously that's a more long-term solution, but like they need a voice. They need a swim coach to come in and say,
yeah, man,
the team's still playing Hiko, get your internet together and let's go, right?
Get the business line. Let's do this. That's such a good point, man. I'm so glad you brought that up. And to go back to the COD team, they almost didn't even qualify to play in the league, right? They didn't even earn the right. And then they made one roster change. And importantly, they added a coach. And I swear to you, they look like a completely different team. I think you're onto the right thing there. That's a really good point. And Cole, I feel like that's probably a good place for us to wrap it up.
That is a wonderful place to start. Simo, let me just say for a second, thank you so much because you dropped a ton of knowledge for us. As Jordan alluded to, we're the dumb guys in the room, so we're calling on the smart guy to provide like the really smart analysis while we cover the fandom side of things, and you delivered in a big way. So thank you so much for sharing your time, especially after doing 2 other shows in the same night. This man just ran the Triple Crown. Slam dunked it at the end too. Like, geez, man. Couldn't be happier.
He's finding new podcasts to be on about Valorant. That is the level of dedication we've got.
Yeah. So thank you very much.
I echo all that. And I do want to give you a chance to tell people where they can find you, what they should be watching out for next. Where should we be tuning our Simo dials so that we can catch what you're doing?
Yeah, I've taken a lot of time to limit the amount of places that I'm at, so it's easier to find me. Like I used to be on Instagram and TikTok and Facebook, and I'm like, you know what? I don't need all of that. So Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, Simo was taken. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward stuff. I really have to thank you guys for having me come on. I know that we've had a little bit of DMs back and forth for a long time. I probably created a lot of energy when I was casting the 100 Thieves next guys, and then I kind of disappeared. But you guys having me on means a lot to me, and it's great to be a part of your community. And thanks to everyone who came out. Like I really appreciate all of you and anyone who follows after the stream. appreciate all of it.
Yeah, man, we're huge fans. We can't wait to see not only what happens with Valorant, but specifically with you. I think it's gonna be a ton of fun to watch. Yo, if you're watching Simo's cast, let him know that you're in the chat.
Yeah.
Drop some emotes. Simo watch party. So hey, that's gonna do it for us. Thank you guys for hanging around. It was a lot of fun. We got tech issues and all.
Wouldn't be a 100 Talk stream if we didn't.
We're grinding to Radiant, right? We're on our way. So the podcast will continue to improve week by week. Hang out with us. And we're in luck. We get another weekend here. So do tune back next week as we fast peak last week.
Thanks, guys. We love you. Miss you already.